Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ, and welcome to yet another third party supplement for the now in the Creative Commons 5th edition rule set and uh, an inspirational setting and adventure book that I have in my possession. And I thought it would be nice to show off some of these third party creations and be inspired by what they've created and use something for ourselves. So we are going to delve into Ebonclad. This, of course, is not a review. It's a little bit of a page through and a way for us to rethink, reuse, recontextualize some of our role playing aspects. Um, the blurb on the back reads as follows. uh, we are the cogs which make the great wheel spin. We hold the strings tied to the marionette. Where packs are drawn, we are the ink upon the parchment. Where ships set sail, we are the wind upon their masts. Where kings are made, ours are the hands holding the crown. We seek no glory. We hold no oaths. We take what is ours. We are the black at the edge of the darkness. We are the silence at the bottom of the abyss. We are the ghosts who tread the streets unseen. Those who call our names shall find only shadows in response. We are Ebonclad. We wear the night. And this is a City of Shadows, unofficially, a City of Shadows um, game supplement. This is a book about playing where characters are essentially Ebonclad. It is a clan in a medieval setting of assassins, thieves, cutthroats, dastardly individuals, and you play in that world. And all of the classic fantasy tropes that take place are reflavored, reused, recontextualized into a city of shadows. And this book is chock full of NPCs, plots, strings, threads, anchors, connections, and the players. Essentially, if we want to get very, very basic, it is the players are the movers, shakers, the Game of Thrones backstabbers, as well as being involved in further plots in Ebonclad. So we're going to take a little bit of a page through, but I would like to mention that one of the best inspirations I find from this book that we can take to other settings or what have you outside of Ebonclad is that with just a little bit of creativity, we can really reframe, re-look at, repurpose, and reuse many of our traditional fantasy tropes, even modern and sci-fi tropes, and center them around a specific purpose that we would like, and that is whatever our hearts desire, whether it is a city of shadows. So we're going to page through, and while we take a look at this, I'm going to expand the size of this look here. While during our moment of paging through this document here, um, one of the best parts I like about this are the vast amount of NPCs. So if you were to purchase this book, acquire this book, every NPC nearly has some connection with half a dozen other individuals in the book itself. And if you're looking for a city of thieves and cutthroats and movers and shakers, this is the one that you like. This is the part of the back of the book that I read. When was this? When was Ebonclad produced? I sometimes forget to do that. I often forget to do this. 2017, Dan Coleman. Yep, open gaming license. So one of the what I love about this book and the setting that takes place is that traditional Dungeons and Dragons fantasy character classes and options are heavily suggested to be recontextualized into a city of shadows. So, for example, uh, even even character classes like barbarian and paladin are thought of differently in this setting to accommodate living in a city of shadows. And while it may stretch credulity sometimes in some players' heads, I think they fit in here. For example, barbarians can very easily be anything from street thugs to bodyguards to um, heck, you can even make them uh, serial killers or something like that in the City of Shadows. Paladins are absolutely positively fit into a protectorate enforcer type of role. And there are, of course, a number of missions. There's the guild and the history of the guild, how the guild operates, the Ebonclad guild itself, the machinations that happen in this organized crime guild, and uh, how the players can both rise in rank, and of course, as they're rising in rank, like someone who is uh, like someone who is uh, having all eyes on them, who's the king of the hill, you're going to have a lot of enemies coming behind you who are just essentially just um, jealous of you on your rise up and want to pull you down and spit on you as you tumble down into the dregs of society, which also talks about the dregs of society. So um, Kintala is this silver city, and there is a bit of a veneer over the top of the city, which is why people come to the city and why there's this ever present churn of victims and oppressors and those who want to come here to the city. And it kind of makes it, it is the New York City, the uh, Miami, Florida. It is the Hollywood in many ways of a fantasy world, and a great metropolis with a lot of trade and such. And of course, that means that there are many people who are here to take advantage and find victims or are victims themselves. And of course, we have ourselves a nice little city map, very generalized city map in locations. Personally, I find it looks a little bit. If I have to knock it for some reason, does look a little bit too even. If I do say so myself, I think there should be some chaos in terms of the city having grown out. But that's just me. And of course, it's a very generalized map. You can describe the neighborhoods and things the way you want. Just use reading a book, describe it as you wish. Big old city state, walls keeping in the worst of the worst. It does give you a bit of a history of the city, and uh, the what's going on in the city is a lot different than the perceptions of those things that are happening outside of the city. And there's some not too bad artwork as we go through. In the margins, so every once in a while you will see like blood stains. It seems like on the edges of the parchment. I like that kind of thing. Just because I'm a very visual individual. So goes to the timeline. Here we go, and goes through the various different ages. And if just from my point of view, um, when using a timeline, while it's very interesting, and sometimes we can read through timelines and read the histories of different places that and it has no effect on the game. Personally, how I would use it for this specific city, and I guess would be more very appropriate for other world creation, is to have some NPCs loyal to a particular age and remember a different age, and especially in fantasy gaming when you have races that can live hundreds of years. There may be people who wish that a particular noble or guild or a criminal organization or faction were in control, and you could play with their loyalties to a bygone era, and just whether their motivation is to bring back or to rejuvenate a power structure that doesn't no longer exists. But that just came about from reading through Ebonclad. It's actually been a while since I've actually read it, but it is bring some of these things back to mind because I like reading role playing game books for some strange reason. I'm one of those strange world builders that likes reading gaming material just for the simple fact of absorbing it. So I don't know. That's just my way of delving into some of these things. As you can tell, just from the image right here with the overly rotund noble and people like alms please more, may I have some more, sir, as he's just I'm sure letting a lot of this food and stuff rot next to him. Yeah, it kind of it's emblematic of this city. The only downside I would say to a city of shadows, especially if the player characters are completely embrace the idea of being here, is that sometimes your players might think everyone everywhere is always plotting against them forever. And while there is some truth to that, I think it could create a sense of the players never trusting anyone, and then it kind of spoils the desire for the players to maintain connections and things like that with other people. Yes, in real life, well, not real life, but if someone were in some kind of criminal enterprise, I'm sure there are people who wouldn't trust each other, which means that there must be things that are more important than interpersonal relationships, and that would have to, of course, work together for safety, work together for money, work together for favors and privileges and things of that nature. Let's see what you guys have to say, if anything. Shice is like, yeah, another setting I've never heard of, probably better than anything Wazi's ever done. Which is why I'm trying to show these off. I don't you guys know I don't normally like showcase specifically fifth edition material, but I'm trying to make the point that if you want to still play the game you like, fantasy D20, you still have your old books and things. Your players really want to get into it, and you want to give zero money to Wizards of the Coast or the Dungeons and Dragons brand. There's plenty of stuff out here. Like I said, this was produced in 2017, so currently it is 7 years old. So yeah, be a gothic dark style setting. It is, yes. I think if the closest thing I could bring to it, it is a fifth edition version of Blades in the Dark. Now, when I say that, this is not pseudo Victorian with like flintlock pistols or anything like that. No, no, no. It's fantasy. I mean, it's got the classic tropes in it. Cityfied monsters and players and races and things like that. But it is definitely a city adventure setting and book, and it has like missions for the players to go through, and then a few options like, hey, if you want to continue for the players to live here. A lot of times this happens with us when we play role-playing games. It's like, hey, let's go out into the unknown, and after a while we tend to reflect back into a wanting to have a home base, or there's all this happens seasonally in the community where people are like, how do you run a city campaign? And this is exactly what that is. So yeah. Yeah. The End King says, reading the description, it seems this book is thief rogue focused. I want to make a barbarian now. Well, how do I explain this? It does seem on the surface to be thief rogue focused, but they do suggest that you like try not to do that. Okay, like I mentioned before, barbarians, paladins should be recontextualized into a city of this type. So an example, like I mentioned before, instead of making paladins holy knights, you can make them uh, marshals, people who are protectorates, like meaning like bodyguards or agents of a criminal organization and things of that nature, where you can just, there's nothing in the game rules that specifically says specific, like there's nothing attached to what paladins and clerics do that specifically says they're holier than thou, except for radiant damage or something like that and healing. But that can be from anything. I mean, having paladins that are loyal to a criminal organization, a nobility, a merchant group, or something like that, and just claiming that their capabilities or their powers come from a different purpose, like Batman. If I had to pick vigilantes or something, paladins could fit into that category. Paladins could also be um, enforcers of the rules of different criminal organizations. And of course, it's called Ebonclad. Ebonclad itself is the main focus of players engaging in this city. So they may be agents of Ebonclad, the people who are the kingmakers. They are the rule. They're the secret police. They are, depending on how you want to run the game, there may be like this dark gothic noir style. Maybe like, listen, uh, Batman doesn't want to break the rules, but the laws are so corrupt, he's got to break the rules to bring justice. And you could very well embrace that into your storytelling. So, in another city, sure, the paladins aren't mud crusted, wearing dark cloaks and blackened blades, but in this city, no one's going to listen to them. So, in order to if you want to be a good character, a good and lawful character, it may be very noir in sense that no, you're not going to save the city and the people, but you could save a few families, pull people who out of their desperation from, say, addiction or gambling debts, threats and intimidation. Maybe the players have to hide in shadows to do such a thing. And it does talk about, suggest, like, how do you handle characters who don't have the classic rogue abilities like stealth and backstabbing, and they don't have any of those abilities? How do you handle that? And of course, the simple answer is they don't have those abilities. Maybe they walk around with impunity because people fear them, or they understand that they are connected with a guild that everyone fears. We know, for people who've ever lived in a city where the um, law enforcement is slim to none and criminals have taken over, many times they hang out on the streets, they patrol the criminals patrol the neighborhood as an open secret, and that's exactly how you could, and I suggest you should handle it. That maybe the player characters don't walk around stealthy and such. uh Maybe there is quite a bit of the everyone, crime happens openly on the streets as the PCs engage in violent actions. And then when the real authorities come, who are on the take or don't care or ineffective, and such, and even if the player characters are confronted, there's a lot of people who are like, I didn't see anything. Head down, hiding away, pulling their own capes up and heads down and stuff like that. So yeah. Let's see what you guys have to say. Um, yeah, Judenfuss is Blades in the Dark. Oh, here we go. D stands for, says, what does D stand for? D stands for Dan. On the cover of the book, it does say D Coleman. So I presume this person doesn't like their name. It's only two more letters, but I don't know. Okay. Uh, mm, mm, mm. Drew's like, I have no interest in fantasy D20. I'm just here for DBJ's rambling. Thank you very much. And like I said, I don't normally hype the idea of using F20 fantasy D20 games, but there's a sizable community out there. And listen, is a little bit of, is it slightly clickbait? Well, it's not clickbaity because I literally am talking about the thumbnail. Um, is it a draw to bring in other people to the channel? Sure, but I actually own these things too, so that's also. And I think sometimes we can get some inspiration from doing such a thing. Like if you're not into either heists and criminalization, but you want to have you still have your old rules and you want to reframe a thing, you can absolutely do that. And this is just a suggestion on how to do it. Shai says, "Oh damn, never heard of Blades in the Dark either. Is it about assassinations and intrigue? Also, is this a more realistic, low magic, low fate? You never heard of what?" Yeah, I'm with Drew. Like, really? Yep. Blades in the Dark is a crime and heist game. You play a crew of criminals. Um, Here's something else that is very hilarious and easy to answer when the season comes around, when this idea comes around in social media in the tabletop role playing community, and that is the idea of how do you play an evil campaign. Now, that's very generalized, and usually that's how it's framed. And there's a million and one ways to do it. But one of them is the fact that we already have games that are built around an evil campaign. And one of the classic ways to run an evil campaign is for players to be criminals. Now, how we define criminality can change, meaning like maybe the characters don't want to be criminals, but they are. In Star Wars, the Rebel Alliance are technically criminals because the rules that are established are so horrible that you got to break the rules. So that's one way to be a criminal. It's like, yeah, it's it's so totalitarian and corrupt and whatnot that you got to break the rules, a la Batman. Okay, and Rebel Alliance of Star Wars. Okay, another way to think about it is cyberpunk, where society is so corrupt anyway that everybody kind of has to make their own rules, and that's where you see like the street samurai, the solo. Um, you, ev- Everything is so lawless. Post-apocalyptic worlds where everything is so lawless, the players themselves have their own code of conduct, their own code of ethics. Sure, is it antithetical to real life law and order? Sure. But if you have your own code of conduct, like, hey, every time I get paid, I fulfill my contract, I'm loyal to my allies, I never hurt, the classic, I don't hurt women, children, or innocents, that kind of thing, and still commit crimes, theft, bribery, intimidation, and things like that, breaking and entering, uh, I don't know, assaults on seemingly unsuspecting victims and things like that. Very easy to do. Drew says, in Critical Role game, Daggerheart is from the mechanics very strong, inspired by Blades in the Dark. And let's not forget Candela Obscura, that seems to be getting, I don't know, lambasted in the community. I don't know. Candela Obscura doesn't bother me the way it is. Uh, uh, Drew also says, DBJ, even in police strong cities, the criminals are open on the street. They just wear police uniforms. Ooh, yeah, yeah. There's a I can't remember the crime movie. I want to say it's King of New York. Anyway, and this happens a lot. And if you ever watch organized crime movies, and you should absolutely steal inspiration from all of those. So in organized crime movies, especially here in the States, and I'm sure across the pond, the law enforcement, and this was a line actually said in a movie where the criminals and the police are meeting on neutral ground, so called, and the police get mad, and one of the cops or detectives or whatever stands up to one of the criminals, and he's like, "You what? You can't say or act that way. My gang's got 50,000 strong, and we got better weapons. So f you." It was something like to that effect. Like he's basically saying, "Yeah, we're a gang just like yours is, but we've got authority and you don't." So absolutely. Absolutely says, "Oh, it's not the D Coleman I was thinking of." Yeah, Ed King. Probably not. Probably not. But yeah, the law enforcement absolutely positively could be the bad guys. And in a fantasy realm, who's to say that your traditional bad guys aren't like super police, right? Where they're not just guards where you're using classic um, city guard and knights stat blocks. I mean, these people might be roided out like trolls and minotaurs and ogres. They may have pets and mounts that are incredible, like displacer beasts and dire wolves and I don't know, I don't know, hellhounds or something like that, patrolling the city. And the players, I some great things, foibles to throw in, obstacles to throw in the player character's way, and it actually exists in this game as well, is to what how does the public react to what the players are doing. Yes, your average citizens might close the curtains and turn away, but that doesn't mean that with enough coin they can lubricate the minds and eyes and mouths of those that see the player characters committing these crimes, as well as the fact that who can the players trust at any particular time. Sorry. This is a breakdown of um, the Ebonclad um, hierarchy, and the players may want to move up in this, or the player characters could literally be their own group that's very small and trying to overthrow the Ebonclads, or they are the players are they themselves a minor gang or organized crime unit that is operating in a city dominated by the Ebonclad. And I would play with all of that if you that's something you really want to do. So we have the Unseen, which are the 7 members representing Ebonclad's supreme authority, and then it moves down from there. The Veils, and under the Veils you have the Engineers, the Keepers, and the Seekers. And then under the Veils we have the Scraps, and those are the Faces, the Shadows, the Thorns, and the Torches. And then under at the very bottom are the Pawns, the uninitiated and unwitting servants of Ebonclad. And those are many of the Pawns, I'm sure, probably don't even know either Ebonclad exists or that they are agents of Ebonclad, even though, heck, they could even be people who are openly against them, but they're still working for uh, the Ebonclad individuals. And a movie to pull from would be the John Wick, the continental background of John Wick would be great to pull from. For example, everyone doesn't need to be a criminal, but there might be like hidden medical services. There may be so-called homeless people that are literally, if you give them a specific coin or message or a badge or a phrase, that it'll it allows the players to maybe find out hidden passageways underneath the city or something like that. And here we have a breakdown of how the Ebonclad cells are divided. So it's literally called a cell. So the players might be members of one gang or group that controls a particular neighborhood, and they may not know, or they're specifically not told, how the other groups operate. And I can imagine there would be a lot of border clashes with territory trying to spread from one place to another, just like regular old criminals about, hey, I'm I'm a drug dealer. Those are my corners, kind of thing. And I'm sure that happens all the time. Uh, whether above board, everyone seems to be working together, and behind the scenes, of course, there's violence and street violence and things like that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of these, like I said, the book's filled with NPCs, so you get a lot of headshots and who's there, what are they doing, things like that. Mm-mm-mm. Let me move ahead to another section of the book and then see what you guys have to say. here we go with a life of crime and talking. It talks about like oh, did I the citizens, how they act, um, the generalization of what happens when crimes are committed, and how to kind of get away with some of the crimes, and who are the average citizens. Here we have, of course, a generalization of the types of races that are here, and it very much is trying to embrace the the larger scope of fantasy D20 Dungeons and Dragons. So you will have like tieflings and dragonborn and things of that nature that may be victims of crime and whatnot. Um, Other fantastical things that happen in the city. It's not very high magic. It doesn't suggest that it's high magic, but yeah, here's like random witness. Here's a table for random witness reactions, and what happens if a random witness sees what goes on. And of course, this doesn't have to be permanent. Yes, people could run or flee or report things, or they're curious or whatever, and you can of course contextually decide like why do they act this way, and could that act there we go could that action lead to other storylines. It's like, it says not all citizens are brave or bold or exemplars or morality. If an NPC witnesses a crime committed by a guild member, you may randomly determine his or her reaction. Keep in mind, a citizen's reaction may shape his or her alignment. The table assumes the citizen is the sole witness to the crime. And remember, it does talk about alignment a little bit. And this is 2017, and it is fantasy Dungeons and Dragons. You don't have to use alignment at all, but yeah, it talks about that. And of course, we have options such as scared, flees, hides, reports immediately, confused, intervenes, curious, and favorable. Now, things like intervenes, curious, and favorable are some of my favorite. Um, Especially if they want something out of it. Maybe they know something. Reports immediately doesn't mean reports immediately to authority. No, let me take that back. It doesn't mean it reports to a legal authority, although they could report to um, um, law enforcement that's on the take. They could report to nobility or other criminal organizations that want to know what's going on, and that kind of thing. And it talks about thievery, lots um, of like adding some complexity to pickpocketing, hiding in shadows, using stealth, moving silently, overhearing conversations, how to hide in plain sight. Um, does talk about possessions, how much something costs. There are also, since it's a city of crime, city of shadows, there are people who, a criminal organization may try to weed out other criminals by pretending to be victims, and then, or pretending to be a mark, and then the players come out of the shadows to rob, steal, threaten, or whatever, and then aha, they throw off the cloaks and surround the PCs. So you may have storylines like that. Some random objects and things, from modest citizens to wealthy people, and what you might find in their pockets. And some of those objects, while they may have some wealth, I mean, some value to them, aren't necessarily traditionally uh, just gold and gems, right? So, for example, like here for a wealthy citizen, there's a D20 chart for like a wealthy citizen, and even squalid citizens and what's in their pockets. So here for wealthy citizen, you may have like gold cufflinks shaped like shields, or a mahogany pipe with a packet of tobacco, or a silk jacket with gold embroidery, an amulet studded with tiny topazes, a velvet mantle studded with lapis lazuli, or an innate holy symbol emblem. And all of those, where the player's defense those objects, it may be a family heirloom, or a, some kind of identifier for nobility and organization or something like that. So you can always make stories about that as well. And we often don't really see too often adventures in trying to pickpocket, as well as the idea of like there's more to it than just pickpocketing. For example, maybe the player characters have to exchange a forged object for a real one. Maybe there is an NPC that has something very unique, like a key or a map or medallion or something of importance, a badge or something, and the PCs may need to steal it, use it, and then return it to where they got it from. Um, Maybe the PCs need to steal a key to make a copy to return the key so that no one knows that that thing was taken. There's so many different adventure type story types, things like that. Talks about catching criminals. PCs may be the criminals, or uh, the player characters themselves could be enforcers of the law as well. Even if it is not so much as just basically being neighborhood protectors, right? They are the guardians of their specific neighborhood. And even if the players are not officially city guards, I could see player characters being like night watchmen or a vigilantes, or what's another one? A militia, something like that. Talks about urban jungle, getting around. There's a lot of tables for like city encounters, maybe even chases, encounters on the streets, and things like that. How to customize a lot of that. You can see where it says customize, where there's little ways to like customize an encounter just to add a little bit of flavor, some story hooks, that kind of thing. I'll get back to what you guys are saying in just a minute. Um, and it has some of these storylines that may draw the characters in. A crowd of people hovering over a game of Zesser. It does talk about some gambling games, some fun games that happen on the streets that are kind of unique. And those are kind of cool for the players to get involved in or bet on, lose some money on, or take someone's money that's pissed off now. A group of people are hovering around a pair of Zesser players, looking at the game token still on the board. It appears to be a close match. The onlookers are silent, only trading gasps with each player's move. And then there's like maybe they overhear a conversation, or the PCs pick one person over the other. Maybe these two individuals have always been a close match, and if one of them wins, it could lead into other storylines and things like that. So these are all story hooks and ways to customize them. Criminality, things like that. Let me go to another chapter here. Setting options, missions. Let's go with setting options here. How big is this book? This book is, I'm going to say 250. No, shy of that. 165 pages with a ton of and a ton of random charts at the back end of it. So yep. Make your own city. Change the city as well. If the player characters leave a neighborhood, leave the city for some reason and come back, the power dynamics may have changed as well. This talks about character backgrounds and changing them. Of course, talking about character backgrounds, character classes, the sexy part, right? Player options, player uses. This was designed back in 2017, so still uses the ideals, bonds, flaws, and personality trait charts and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't have a problem with those at all. Kind of tacked on, to be honest with you, in Fantasy D20, but yeah. You guys know I'm not really big into that. Here this is the missions table, how to create missions, and let me get to see what you guys have to say. The Yanking says, in this setting, thieves should be crucial. Maybe it should be available via a feat for non-rogues. First of all, it is. And it also does a thing that I like about languages, which turns it more into communication rather than a traditional spoken language. So, um, Ebonclad has its own hand signal style language, but it also suggests criminalized languages, meaning like um, graffiti and chalk markings and paintings and things like that might be on buildings where players know to look for something, and they know, hey, it's a bakery, but with this marking on the building, there's a casino underneath. Or they know that individuals who walk around with a particular type of clothing, scarf, jewelry worn in a certain way, a knotted rope or whatever on their clothing, it denotes, hey, um, the blue and reds are the Bloods and Crips here in the United States with gang affiliation that your average citizen that comes to visit has no idea. But when you know the purple, green, and red braided rope means that this is neutral territory for the three gangs that operate on the docks. But if you go into the city and you just see purple and green, you know that those two are enforcers, blah, 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 blah. So, and then it may be like, how do you wear a clip-on earring? Or there is there's a double knotted tie from a thing worn around the neck or something like that, whatever. There's a horsehair braid that hangs from the hip or whatever. So I like a lot of that, those kind of things, like especially when the players know something and the citizens don't know, and they feel a little bit special. And you don't have to make this die rolls. It's the what's the movie Blade? I was about to say Blades in the Dark, from the movie Blade, where um, the vampires can see in like the infrared, and they have these infrared markings on nightclubs and alleyways and things, and it's like, oh, it's under this clan or tribe. So I like the Thieves Can't version of that as well, where it's not just slang, it's also communication. They also talk about the nobility, the higher level people, speaking in double speak, so that they speak socially and they convey smiles and embracing each other, but there are threats underneath it. So there's a bit of that as well. Where are you supposed to hear? Really? Where are you supposed to hear about it? Never came up on this channel until now. And Andrew Wood, the only other RPG guy worth listening to, never talked about it. I talk about it all. Okay, maybe one of these days I'll go into it, or I'll use it as a theme of. I'll figure out a way to talk about it. But I have talked about it before. The NLB gave it before he went trader. Never talked about it either. So grand total of 0 credible sources have talked about Blades in the Dark. Wow, that's awesome. It's awesome that you don't know that. I really do. Would road pirates in a big city just be street pirates? Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah. Does it have a costume shop you can just duck into and change clothes real quick and instantly make the guards and everybody forget who you are? Ooh, that sounds like a really great mm, allied source to have, where you can like duck behind like a business or something like that, and there's basically new clothing you can like really quick uh, don new outfits, or switch your outfits out, or at least have a hiding spot to take your cloak and turn it backwards, take the tabard off and turn it upside down, you know what I mean? That take your metal helmet off and it's got hinges in it that turns it inside out or something. I don't know. That would be awesome. That would be very awesome. In But yeah, definitely the Thieves Can't is spread out a little bit. Thieves Can't. Time to rewatch Gangs in New York. Come to think of it, is that movie what this setting was based on? Ooh, I I would dare say I would say would probably be a motivator for it. I don't think it's based on gangs in New York, but I'm sure because we're in the community, we're in a tabletop role playing community. Our asses are always thinking about like City of Shadows, but I bet the movie comes out and a kick in the pants. Yeah. By the way, Cockney rhyming slang, is that a real life incarnation of Thieves Camp? Maybe. Uh, from around the world, we have communities that have come up with uh, hidden meanings in public. Uh, the first one that comes up, I'm in Ohio Valley, and in Ohio, we were a major thoroughfare for the Underground Railroad for the escaped slaves, and a lot of the songs that were the Negro spirituals that were sung back in the day were hidden meanings to allow escaped slaves to know where to go along the Underground Railroad to go up north. And so, yeah, having songs and bawdy limericks and things of that nature, poetry and whatnot in the streets, seemingly homeless people mumbling to themselves are actually hidden messages for some of the criminals. Hell yeah. And King says, I liked 5e when it came out because it was an improvement over 4e, but now aspects of it annoy me. It tries to straddle crunch and rules like pick one. Yeah. I see that a lot, right? I see that with some of the third party developers, like, oh, pick a side. It's extremely difficult to be all things to everybody. Shay says, I ignore all real media and only go to select YouTubers to get my news. So if my sources don't mention it, I don't know about it. Ah, okay. Blaze in the Dark, you mentioned it, but I thought it was a movie. Nope, it is a role playing game. John Harper, and it is a heavily modified version of Powered by the Apocalypse. So it uses D6's dice pool. I think the maximum dice you can roll is 4d6, and it very much embraces partial success. The vast majority of roles in the game are success with complication, and the players play in a neo-Victorian city of criminality, and you play gang members and that kind of thing. Yep. So moving on to Ebonclad, or moving further in Ebonclad, talks about the missions and how to create missions, types of missions you engage in, um, how to design the missions, coming up with different things for the players to do in missions, and of course, this is a city. Kintala or it could be the L's could be pronounced like a Y in like in Spanish, so it could be Kintaya, but it's probably Kintala. And then various sample missions like spying or threats, intimidation, bribery, extortion. Again, the pickpocketing idea, the exchanging of information, forgery, that kind of thing. Also, the aftermath of missions. So there's the prep of a mission, the execution of the mission, and then the aftermath of the mission. What evidence was left behind in a mission? Who did the PCs offend at the end of a mission? Maybe that particular mission that they engage in, whether it's based on money or ideals or whatever, are all of the allies, and um, how do the personalities and motivations change of the allies and the enemies? That's always important as well. PCs pickpocket some random people again, and it could be like, well, they pickpocket random people, but those objects that they stole could be very important. Of course, we have a ton of NPCs. Welcome to the guild, Scrap. Once you're in for life. Of course, now that you're a member, we have a say in just how long that life will be. The idea of blood in, blood out. Once you're in, you're in for life is also heavily emphasized if the players become members or are members of the Ebonclad criminal organization, especially if the players are like, my character's not a member of the Ebonclad, and they look at you like, no, your adventuring life belongs to us. You came back home, and someone comes and visits them at the door, and they're like, we're going to offer you 500 gold pieces, and the PCs are like, we're only second level. That's a lot of money. And like, you, by the way, if you take this money, you belong to us. And the PC's like, whatever, no big deal. I don't care. And then now the PCs are in for life, and to be hunted for life simply because they failed to do what the NPCs or adversaries, the enemies wanted them to do, could also bring the PCs into it. Like, we're not criminals, and a criminal organization is like, you've been working for us for a long time, which also can very much get under player character's skin. Nobody tells us what to do, blah, 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 blah. Of course, it gives some stat blocks for a bunch of NPCs and citizens, who they are, what their motivations are, etc. And they mention many of their names throughout the book. So, of course, they have to put that towards the back of the book and some of their skills and things like that. Here's some, we're almost done paging through the book. Here are some maps. Of course, you could copy them. It's a PDF, so you can snatch them out. You know, alleyways. I guess one of the closest things you might want to pull in from this would be the animated Arcane series on Netflix. Is a good example as well of like a, you know, what is it, Piltover and Zahn and, oh, I can't remember all the locations, but I think that would be kind of a cool way to pull in some, like, if you need to have some themes about a corrupt city and government and police, as well as people just trying to survive on the streets who really don't want to be criminals, but they have to do things underhanded just to survive. Yeah, roadside maps. So these are just a bunch of maps and things. I'm sure there's some VTT, although 2017, I don't know. I'm sure many of these maps could be turned into virtual tabletop assets as well. And then here we have a collection of tables at the end. Of course, they're scattered throughout the book, but here's some extra random citizens, random loot that people may find. Of, like, for example, there's even things here like affluence and influence. And so maybe someone is obviously squalid or obviously a common person, but then somebody might have modest wealth, but they're very discreet about it. Or maybe someone is wealthy, but they're being discreet. So it could be a wealthy person dressed as someone that is squalid. The players don't know that until they uncover who it is. And so again, context is very important. And players may not even understand why it's important, but they find out that, yeah, it's very important. So yep, some tables, random loot, random citizens, things like that, things that they have, hold, own. They, of course, there's many people traveling around the city won't be alone, so you can have an entourage, of course, and many of them might have the same item, like a copper ring around their finger, or they're all wearing the same. They all have a spyglass. I'm just looking at a 1,000 gold piece spyglass. Maybe that's a little too expensive. Studded amulets, purses, and things like that. Hell, even coinage from a bygone era that represents their loyalty to an older regime, and that could be very, very important. I did skip past a location talking about urban complications, but here we have some new urban chase complications and how to run like a chase scene and such. And you can roll for every round or whatever. There's random street encounters as well. And if the players are chasing or being chased, or NPCs or adversaries are trying to run to a location the player characters are also trying to get to, and one group is trying to get there before the other, you have complications. Like, Your path leads to a small wall, fence, or barrier, so you got to get the hell over it or knock it down. A piece of debris temporarily flies in your face, such as linens dropped from overhead, clothesline, or litter in the street, whipped up by the wind. Of course, the proverbial um, uh, rotted vegetables and fruit or feces dumped out of a window or something like that, spilled overhead. Maybe something like that could happen. A little comedic, but of course, the classic fruit stand. Even here, just something simple like a fat halfling in a red coat screaming, "I'm late," as an encounter, or a minstrel singing a song about the city. And again, it could leave a clue as to something that's going on. A group of slum thugs, etc., etc. We get here performers, random vendors. I think that we're at the end of this, and then we get to the index. So, thank you very much for letting me show Ebonclad to you guys. Let me shrink this down so we get to see the uh, here, and then talk about Ebonclad a little bit before we get out of here. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Do you have any concrete examples of how they packed important information into those Southern Black spiral songs? No idea. How they did it, not certain. The I was just listening to a video about a gentleman talking about how complex what we would consider here in the States known as like Ebonics, and how during those uh, during the um, chattel slavery period of time in American history, how they so many different groups of people from different languages that came from Africa that came over here were able to communicate and use those songs to communicate. So very complicated for that. Choices. Thanks for the show. This low fantasy realistic D&D stuff is always interesting. Um, I would I would dare say if low fantasy. How to describe this? Okay, like the Eberron setting, if I were to run Ebonclad myself and I wanted to add more fantastical elements to them, I would just make those fantastical elements very common and very mundane ish. So instead of people having pets like dogs and birds and cats, maybe some rats and monkeys or something, I would add in some fantastical monsters as very common in the city. I love personally, I love low fantasy, but I'm doing this as a um, devil's advocate. So the idea that a crime lord would have sitting next to them a black lion with red stripes, and on the other side of them, a hellhound or whatever. And it could be called something else. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, I would do that. Having a halfling crime lord and their two bodyguards, a minotaur with a giant ass battle axe and an ogre with a big club, um, dressed in I don't know silk shirts or something. Yeah, I would throw that in there in the fantasy realm. Anything more than that, maybe I could see arcane wizardry involved in it. Like, for example, something as simple as invisible ink that can only be seen if it's held up to flame, or a specific type of um, and a sponge is patted over the blank sheet of paper, and language comes up from it, to even um, messengers, that a messenger is given a message and magically they can't remember what the message is. They arrive to the other person and they speak a code word or show them an image, or they have a ring that matches each other and they press the two rings together, and now the messenger's eyes roll in the back of their head and they start speaking the words in the very voice and intonation that the person gave the speech. Like, I would throw something like that into the world, as well as Game of Thrones, instead of using pigeons, they use ravens. I would add something there into it like that. I think in the city of Sharn in Eberron, they have gargoyles that fly around the city and send message, here and there. Drew says, speaking of Ebonics, I have watched recently a video that made the argument that it is more grammatically advanced, yep, than standard English, since it has expressions that are not possible otherwise. We saw the exact same video. I know the gentleman you're talking about. He's a talking head like myself, and he's a linguist expert in terms of how Ebonics uses various types of more complicated time frames, like something happened in the past that may be happening in the future that may have happened, like, and it uses a more complicated version of explanation things. Like, for example, I have to pull something out of my ass. Traditionally, a sentence like "I will have had done that thing" is complicated, and this shortens it, but also expresses it. Yeah. Ebonics, the way I know it in real life, seems to be evolved from all the different dialects or accents that speak in the Deep South. Exactly. Let's see if I can find. Okay, I'm going to try to find it and put it up here. Shout out this person who I'm sure has a huge channel. But let's. Since I've watched it, I know that it's in my history, and it was, when I say recent, within 2 days. So let's look up my history, and then I will put it out there. Oh, what's that? Boobs. Boobs. Damn shit comes across my feed. All right. Okay. Sorry. I know I know you can hear the clicks, and not everybody's into the ASMR. Full Metal Jacket. Uh, hmm. Come on, buddy. I know you're here. I listen to a lot of YouTube channels, so please tell me. Please tell me you are here. I got it. All right, let's see. Put you up here. Stop. And share. Let's see. Put this person out here. And of course, I want to get the link here. Copy. And paste. You can't post messages to some. What? Language Jones is a channel. Oh, it won't let me. What in the world? Why won't it? Shit. Now it's telling me I can't do it. Yeah, it won't let me. Yeah, it won't let me post it. It won't let me post it. But this is the video, by the way. Sorry about that. Yep, Language Jones. Titled "Your Grammar is Basic Compared to Black English," and he goes through explaining, breaking it apart and explaining that it's not just broken English. That it's more complicated. It's really cool. It's a different look, and I really appreciate it. So yeah. It's one of those things that happens, I think, humanity wise, that's really cool. Can I get the thumbnail? I can't find the thumbnail. Um, but it's really cool. What it's got? 85,000 subscribers, had 100 almost 130,000 views in the last 7 days. So yeah. Yeah, even people in the chat are going through like um um try explaining the tenses in that in old Southern language, and trying to explain it, like you could have been going there equals you could have traveled to that place long ago, and then rather than you been could have gone there is you've had access to that place for a long time, and how just changing two different words means different things. It was really cool. I would love I would get dinged for this huge, but I would love to thank you Drew. How were you able to post a link and I wasn't? That is really weird. I think it's because I'm live streaming right now. But I would love to do a language live stream, or not. I would love to do a live stream on other people's streams and kind of break them down and things like that. I've thought about doing that, and just like shit, they'll tag me big time. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for letting me share this. Let me put the original up here so that YouTube doesn't think that I'm trying to steal somebody else's content, which I'm not. I'm just shout out. Ebonclad, City of Shadows. I call it the City of Shadows. It actually, the byline is Ebonclad, we wear the night, and it is a city campaign where the players are part of a city ruled by crime, and the player characters are part of it. It is a 5th edition setting book. You can acquire it or use it as just through this talk, use it as inspiration to run your own city campaign, rethink, recontextualize, repurpose the things that are in your fantasy D20 to make them criminalized, including like clerics and warlocks and such. I mean, how cool would it be to play a cleric or warlock where your patron is literally a crime lord in the city? Odd. It disappeared. Okay, well, all right, I guess I'll stop screen sharing it then. Where your character is a literal crime lord in the city, and you could really beseech them, whether that crime lord is a hag or a naga or a sphinx or a rakshasa, which would be really kind of cool, a Medusa or something like that. I think that would be very cool, as well as player characters being in league to, or fighting off, or escaping from, or taking over, or trying to take down another criminal organization, even if that criminal organization is the law itself. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much. Tomorrow we're going to do the Ravaged Wasteland of Kryphoth, a one of a number of settings that I have for based on 5th edition that WotC and Wizards of the Coast have no control over, about where evil has won. Many times we see post-apocalyptic settings where evil has destroyed everything. In this one, evil has won. Criminal Cleric, that'll make a good title for something next to the Rage Mage and a Full Metal Alchemist. Hell yeah. Criminal Clerics and such. Yeah, absolutely. Lying, stealing, cheating for your deity, even if that deity may be a person, place, or thing that is deified. I could also see in fantasy realms a type of religious zealotry that I'd make Sauron as a cleric. Yep, you could absolutely, right? You are in league with a power that where the normal rules don't apply to you, like the law of man, whatever. Lying, stealing, cheating, backstabbing, assassination, who cares? That doesn't matter. I follow a higher law. I follow a higher authority. Yeah, absolutely. Although I had fun. I know people hate talking about like, well, my character, but I had fun playing a cleric, and my character class was a rogue, and I played the character as a cleric to the hilt, and everyone was laughing at me because I was like, oh, breaking into the lockbox where people drop their silver and copper into it before they went into the. I learned how to pick locks to get the gold out, and I mean, and silver and copper to pay for things and stuff. Sneaking around the religious institution to hear other people's conversations and things like that. Yeah, intimidating people and threatening people and bribing people, because I would never allow the Holy Knights to have to do that. That's why I did it for them. I had a lot of fun with that, and people were just looking at me and rolling their eyes because I'd say one thing and I'd be talking out the side of my neck. Basically, words would come out my mouth, all lies, and then the real thing would be, very, very funny. Evil Overlord healing and taking care of his minions. Spirit Guardians can literally be just goblin minions. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Which is why I always wondered, like, I know why the game does this, but it's like, how come evil clerics can't heal? They've over time they've changed that, but I always thought that was ridiculous. I was like, why wouldn't the evil cleric heal their evil compatriots to do a thing, right? I mean, could you imagine in the streets people being strung up and tortured and then their wounds being healed so they can be tortured again? That would be amazing thing to be done. Individuals being blinded with the light, having a light spell cast into the open eyes of individuals, being blinded as tears and maybe even blood pouring out of the eyes of the wicked as they see the pure light of the people they should be following. Yeah, yeah. You could get real evil with some good stuff. You know, we've seen it in real life, and putting that in fantasy would be awesome as well. Hell, I think we even did a whole episode uh, about healing and stuff. Anyway, uh, I'll come on down. All right, guys. Everybody, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for delving into this dark city that we have. Guys, have a great one. I will see you later. Peace and tranquility. See you tomorrow. Bye.